Peyton, nice seeing you again for our idea bite. This time it is the idea bite of try to view yourself as you would view yourself from the outside, as an observer of your situation.
Yeah, yeah. So this idea I got most clearly from Anthony DeMello, I believe, and it was in his book. I want to say Awareness, although it could have been one of his other books. But his quote, the way he put it, was, "Observe everything that happens within you and around you as if it's happening to someone else." And to me, this captures a posture toward experience, toward the changing nature of reality and even of our mind and actions within, from a position of good, bad, like, dislike, want, don't want, grasp, resist, cling, crave, toward a more objective, balanced, and equanimous view of experience. And so this is an area that I'm very much still working on, and most of us are. And ultimately, the goal here is that we can still have wise desires in the sense of orienting ourselves toward what we view as good and useful or beneficial to ourselves and others. But we also need to understand that experience is always changing, and many things, regardless of our actions, are going to be outside of our control. And even the things within our control are dependent upon the ever-changing conditions of our very imperfect mind and operating system. This 3 pounds of meat that's between our ears that is operating on very old hardware and software in a new environment that it's not always perfectly up to the task to. And so for me, what I would like to orient myself toward, and I have a long way to go on, is when things happen, whether it's things happening from the outside, whether it's things that recurringly happen, or whether it's things that I myself am doing or thinking, is how can I see clearly what is right in front of me and view reality on reality's terms exactly as reality is, and have an attitude and a posture of awareness, clear seeing, and acceptance of the present moment, even while I'm formulating some plan to do something about it or to make some step forward or change. Because really, this present moment is already here. This present moment is right in front of us and can't be changed because the past created the present. The present moment and what we act right now can affect the future, yes, but we actually can't change what's right here in front of us. It's already here. And so the first step in order to kind of ride the wave with a little more peace, and ultimately, in my opinion, to be even more effective at what we're trying to do, is to clearly see, okay, this is reality. It is the present. Me resisting reality right here is only going to make me less happy, less effective, and not be there in quite as present, quite as beneficial and positive a way for other people. And so before I take this next step and make this plan or this path, first I need to observe what's going on within and around me as if it's happening to somebody else with a degree of distance and disenchantment, so that I can have as effective as an approach and as free of a mind as I can while I navigate through it.
Yeah, man. The effectivity of this practice of trying to observe what's happening inside and around you as an observer, like from the outside, is tightly coupled to the therapeutic qualities of this practice, which in my view relates to the saying of Viktor Frankl, who survived this Holocaust. And the saying goes like this: between stimulus and response, there is a space or a room where you can decide how you're going to react. And coupling it to wisdom, if wisdom is like being aware and able to judge the consequences of your own actions and higher order consequences of these actions and therefore deciding actively towards the options with the best possible outcomes compared to the negative outcomes, so that you can create something which is of value for yourself and for others. Coupling with this wisdom, you can actively use it as a tool to create this space for you to view reality as it is and deal with reality as it is. And reality inside you and also the reality outside of you, and therefore regaining more control and practicing and being able to practice some kind of wisdom where you can decide for the options that you want to see getting true inside your life. And also when using this as a tool, viewing yourself and what's happening inside and outside of you, and trying to regain this space inside you to decide what you want for yourself and how you want to deal with the situation. You can actively expand this room through practices of like awareness or practices of focus meditation or even exposure therapy. Like a surgeon who's practicing medicine and viewing blood for the first time in a different state internally than when he exposed himself thousands of times to these views. So you can actively train these spaces as well to have a more fulfilled life, to live a more wise existence in not overreacting to things that don't need the reaction. Because sometimes through the reaction you have, like overreacting, you actually are able to make it worse. Like it never was a big deal until I reacted a kind of hysterical way. And therefore, there is this wisdom resonating behind this approach of making the space wider inside of you. It's Wu Wei. It's like this actively not doing and actively not reacting and actively not resisting the situation how it is, to better be able to guide it when it unfolds, to guide yourself with your reaction towards better consequences of the unfolding situation.
Yeah, and this is for me, a practical instruction that I'm looking to bring forward into this week, because it's really a tactic, this act of trying to observe something as if it were happening to somebody else that can enable us to view things much more objectively, to enable us to have some space to not gut react but to respond. And I definitely can say that my own emotions, especially as it relates candidly to leadership and other people, are far more of a risk than they are a benefit or a controlled tool. They're much more of a forest fire than they are a lighter. And so viewing things as if they're happening to somebody else, as just a practical few examples. If I go downstairs and my basement is flooded and I see it and I'm reacting to it as if it's happening to somebody else. Like if I was going down and somebody told me that some acquaintance of mine had their basement flooded, I would tell them, and they ask, what should I do? I would say, okay, your basement flooded. Well, there's only so much you can do right now. You can clean up the mess, you can mop the floor, you can do things to ensure that it won't happen again if there are things within your control. You can have a decent perspective about it and understand that these things happen and it could be much worse. And you can move things around or put things on shelves so that the next time they'll be elevated off the floor and they won't be ruined if they're valuable. And to the things that are already ruined, I would tell them, okay, you need to throw those away. They're not good anymore. And you mourning them or lamenting how much they are, or adding up the total cost and thinking to yourself how much better it would have been if you would have thought that this was going to happen and moved them away in advance. That's not going to help the situation. And same with if I'm in an interpersonal thing and I think somebody is For example, if I think somebody that I respect has a low opinion of me or is mad at me or something like that. If it's somebody else, if you, Johannes, ask me what you should do if a friend doesn't like you or somebody you respect doesn't like you, I would give you some sort of advice from a distance and say, okay, well, maybe that's within your control. Maybe it isn't. Is there something you can do about it? Is there something you need to clear up? Or is this just a difference in values, difference in opinion, difference in perception? And there's no action that you can do right now that's helpful. There's either something you can do or something you can't do. And if there's something you can do, go ahead and do it. And this level of disenchantment can be tremendously beneficial if we can actually apply this into our life. Obviously, it's much easier said than done, but imagining that it's a friend telling us about this situation that we're in right now, and how would we think about it? How would we respond? How would we react? How would we advise in that scenario? How would we tell them how to react and think? Is a useful tool. And for example, this past week, I was in my head about something, reached out to you, Johannes, and you said, yeah, I've dealt with that too. And you were able to give me objective thoughts about, Peyton, it's not that big of a deal. It's mostly in your head. It's natural for this to happen this way, for you to think this way, but it's not ultimately productive and fruitful that you're focusing on this. You need to focus on what is your values, staying true to your values, and then if you are staying true to your values, then it doesn't matter if other people contradict. You're better off trusting your intuition and what you believe, as opposed to being overly swayed and brought into a tizzy by what others may or may not even be thinking. So that's a bit of what I'm going to look to apply this once again. It's been a bit out of my mind, but this is a really powerful tactic that I think gets at some of the most important mental postures as it relates to our subjective experience in the world of being happy or unhappy. Is if we're in a posture of wanting things to be different than they are, and really having a strong desire, a strong craving in our mind to change reality as we find it right now. And this is a useful way to see it with clearer eyes, become less enchanted with it, because we know how we would respond if it were somebody else and we weren't involved. And so we can access those thoughts if we remember to look through things that happen to us through that frame.
Yeah, man, you cannot change a situation that is already done. So best don't cry over spilled milk.
Yeah,
No thought in the world can change the sun from happening to setting down behind the earth, or the earth from spinning further so that the sun now faces a different direction. And no thought in the world can change what already happened. So don't cry over spilled milk, and don't be attached to this certain idea of things shouldn't have happened. So it is this attachment that often leads to suffering. And therefore, if you let go of this attachment to these certain ideas, then you also are able to alleviate your suffering. You control what is happening inside you through not reacting to the things that are happening in a way that forces you to resist, and feelings come up which tell you to wish it to be different. Therefore, try to focus on the space that you can control, and do not focus on the things you cannot control. Because what is in your control is your reaction to the things happening, which also influence the outcomes that come after, the higher order consequences and the consequences of the consequences.
absolutely. My friend Zach, as a closing note, told me once that stuck with me. I think he was quoting Covey or some famous self-help author, but he said that you have a circle of what's within your control and a circle of what's outside of your control. And the more clearly you can see and accept the things outside of your control, the more the circle of your control grows. And the more focused you get on what's outside of your control, which, by the way, includes every single thing in the past, including the stuff that you did, that's currently out of your control. The more you can see and accept what's outside of your control, the more the circle within your control grows. So that's, I guess, a good reason, motivator for us to learn to see with clarity, with disenchantment, and accept reality. So Thank you, Johannes. It's a pleasure as always to connect on these idea bites, and I
Thank
look
you
forward
too,
to the next
Peyton.
time.
See you next time, man. Thank you.
Sure. Ciao.
Appreciate you. Ciao. So, nice.